hold the majority of the 300,000 manuscripts in Timbuktu. This is an incredible treasure that dates back to the 15th and 16th centuries. The local authorities in Timbuktu believe that 2,000 to 3,000 manuscripts were destroyed in the fire that the Islamists started before they fled the town.
We have collected all the necessary information we have, the plans, the photos. We have to restore them. It's extremely important message for the local people, for Mali and for the world.
The UNESCO Director General accompanied French President François Hollande during his visit to Mali last week. Hollande pledged French aid to the effort to rehabilitate these manuscripts. All the instruments that were being used to digitalize the precious documents will have to be replaced.
Mali has seen its first suicide attack Friday when a bomber wearing a paramilitary uniform set an explosive at an army checkpoint in Gao. And the trial of former Chadian President Hesni Habri began on Friday in the Senegalese capital Dakar. For more on these and other stories, we turn to this African News Roundup.
Mali has seen its first suicide attack. Friday morning, a suicide bomber wearing a paramilitary police uniform set off an explosives belt at an army checkpoint in Gao in the north, injuring a Malian soldier. According to witnesses, the suicide bomber was a Tuareg. An Al-Qaeda offshoot called Mujao claimed responsibility. A special African court set up to try the former president of Chad, Hissène Habré, officially began work today in Dakar. No date has been set yet for the trial proper. It has been 7 years since the African Union mandated Senegal under Abdoulaye Wade to try the former dictator who has lived in Senegal for over 20 years. It was only when Macky Sall took office in 2012 that the procedure got underway. Chadian victims have waited for this moment since 1990.
After 22 years of tenacity and perseverance, Hissène Habré's victims will finally get their day in court.
Hissène Habré, who's lived in Dakar since 1990, is accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity and torture. 40,000 people were reported killed during Hissène Habré's dictatorship. In Zambia, a high-speed collision between a bus and a truck killed 53 people. The Zambia Postal Service bus had been taking passengers from the Copperbelt mining province to Lusaka. According to initial investigations, all the vehicles involved were speeding. 1,200 people are killed on the roads every year in Zambia out of a population of 13 million. "70 people have died in floods in Mozambique in the Limpopo River Valley. 180,000 people were forced to leave their homes to take refuge on higher ground. The north of Mozambique is also badly hit by flooding. Thanks to a decade-long effort to lessen the impact of natural disasters, most people have survived these floods, which are the worst in 10 years.
Thousands of Tunisians stormed the streets of the capital to mark the funeral of Shukri Balaid, a prominent opposition figure assassinated on Wednesday. The strike was the first of its kind in 35 years as the ruling Islamist party is accused of killing the main opposition leader. Details in the CFI report.
Thousands of Tunisians attended the funeral of Shukri Balaid, the opposition leader assassinated on Wednesday. The country's opposition and largest union called a general strike on Friday in homage to Mr. Balaid, a fierce opponent of the ruling Islamist party. The general strike was the first in 35 years. Most shops and offices were closed. Protesters accused the government of being behind the killing and of having betrayed the ideals of the Arab Spring. Demonstrations were held in cities across the country. Crowds chanted slogans accusing the government of the assassination. Security forces were deployed throughout the country to prevent a repeat of the unrest that has shaken the country since Wednesday.
I think the assassination was planned in order to destabilize the country and plunge it into chaos.
Unions called for peaceful demonstrations. Despite the appeal, sporadic clashes were reported. The assassination of Mr. Balaid has widened the political fault line between the country's secular and Islamist factions.
We've had enough. There is no democracy, no economy, nothing at all.
The ruling Islamist party, Ennahda, has rejected the plan announced by the Prime Minister to form a non-partisan government of technocrats. The Prime Minister said he would dissolve the present government and call new elections.
And before we end this edition of the news, a reminder of our headlines. The Gambia has tabled a bid for the hosting of the 14th summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, as President Jammeh also drew the attention of OIC leaders to the plight of the Muslim Ummah. The people of the West Coast settlement of Penyem has celebrated the commissioning of a skills acquisition center thanks to a Netherlands-based NGO helped the Gambia to learn. Mali has witnessed its first suicide attack when a bomber disguised a paramilitary officer detonated an explosive at an army checkpoint in Gao. And thousands of Tunisians have stormed the streets of the capital, Tunis, to mark the funeral of a leading opposition figure recently assassinated in the North African country. Well, that brings us in the news. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned and enjoy our range of interesting programs.
Assalamu alaikum yéen ñi nga xam ne yéen a ngi seetaan Gambia Radio and Television Services man la seen xarit Maam Jeng borom bakku yéen da ngeen ko yëngal man ma di ko yëngal fii ci GRTS.
Hello, I'm Mudiwa, and I'm sure you've never heard about the weekly buzz before, but I will be buzzing into your homes every single week to bring you the latest buzz in town, only on GRTS.
Gela Mincham, Apalu, Alterima La Mincham, Senharit, Live, Subconnect GRTS.
Damane, kan mo am fit pour taxaw live reloma nga re ñepp dal di haatay man Abdoulaye Badji ci bir GRTS pare neen pour xam who's the Gambia's funniest comedian te so leen pare we gonna Gangnam Style.
Open Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style.
Waimina lakum ya sudukun sudokun sudukun kumbuzora nyabada kumve banim fadu ale jabita masudukun atonyala sudukun
Abarka jalba kuyate niya korosi programo fo belar nyamen biri men be studio kono cameraman olu abebe kontanere mbake ila kafu programme o nyima pour ka nkide fata jam bar mbangi tan la moy lal ni ngibe lal lako programme o men ka kale janka fa na kunun animbi mbe kunun nimbi le kono nono la kunun kam mambi kumo fo o programme o nyimen kanale sibiti longo sibiti wa sibiti